Friends, today let's talk about India. It's been a while since we covered India, so let's check in and see what's going on. As many of you already know, since May arrived, India has been getting hotter and hotter. And we're not talking about politics, economics, or social media arguments. We're talking about real heat. The kind of heat people can actually feel. Of course, most countries become warmer during the summer months. That's completely normal. But India's situation is a little different. They're getting so hot that people are starting to feel like ingredients in a giant pressure cooker. According to the India Meteorological Department, average temperatures in New Delhi during mid-May reached between 43 and 45 degrees Celsius. That's roughly 3 to 5 degrees above normal seasonal averages. Meanwhile, parts of Uttar Pradesh recorded temperatures as high as 48.2 degrees Celsius, setting records that haven't been seen since the 1950s. As the old joke goes, if the Himalayas are one giant air conditioner, then India somehow ended up sitting behind the exhaust unit. Now, to be fair, some reports online claim temperatures exceeded 50 degrees Celsius. That's a bit exaggerated. The highest officially recorded figure was only 48.2 degrees, only. As if that somehow makes things better. And honestly, I don't even know whether I should mention this part. India loves being number one in rankings. Whether it's technology, population, economic growth, or anything else, being first always sounds good. Well, congratulations. When it comes to the world's hottest cities, India has absolutely dominated the leaderboard. Unfortunately, this isn't exactly the kind of competition most people want to win. Of course, geography plays a role in all of this. But geography isn't the whole story. A significant part of India's heat problem is self-inflicted. Sure, digging a giant tunnel through the Himalayas would be difficult. But there are plenty of other ways to cool down a country. In fact, Earth already comes with a built-in cooling guide. The simplest solution, trees. Plant more trees. Trees are basically nature's air conditioners. Their canopies block sunlight before it reaches the ground. In some cases, trees can block up to 90% of direct solar radiation. Stand under a tree on a hot day, and you'll immediately feel the difference. That's because you're activating one of humanity's oldest cooling technologies, shade. Trees also help cool buildings. When planted on the eastern or western side of a structure, they reduce direct sunlight hitting walls and windows. That means lower indoor temperatures and lower air conditioning costs. Trees and grass together are even more effective. Trees help retain moisture in the soil. That moisture then evaporates, removing heat from the surrounding environment. Entire neighborhoods can become cooler simply because vegetation helps regulate temperature. Studies have shown that even moderate tree coverage can reduce local temperatures by several degrees. Large cities with substantial green space often experience lower pollution, lower temperatures, improved air quality, and reduced energy consumption. The science isn't complicated. People have known this for years. The problem is that India has been following a completely different strategy. Instead of planting trees, India spent decades cutting them down. Over the last 20 years, millions of hectares of forest have disappeared. Some trees were burned as fuel. Others became construction materials, furniture, or industrial products. Whatever the reason, the result was the same. Fewer trees, less shade, more heat, higher carbon emissions. And while forests were shrinking, cities kept growing. Concrete, steel, asphalt, tin roofs, roads, factories, apartment blocks. Everywhere you look, more surfaces that absorb heat and release it back into the environment. During the day, concrete soaks up enormous amounts of solar energy. Metal surfaces become hot enough to burn skin. At night, all that stored heat gets released back into the air. The result is a giant urban heat island. And that's before adding vehicle emissions, industrial pollution, and smog. Mix all of those ingredients together, and you create a city that traps heat almost around the clock. That's why India's heat crisis isn't just about weather. It's also about urban planning, it's about deforestation, it's about infrastructure. And now, those decisions are starting to have consequences. As temperatures rise, demand for cooling equipment explodes. Millions of people turn on fans. Millions more turn on air conditioners. Electricity consumption surges. According to India's Ministry of Power, national electricity demand recently hit record levels. For 4 consecutive days, India recorded all-time highs in peak electricity usage. The power grid struggled to keep up. And that's where things started getting ugly. Much of India's electrical infrastructure is old. Transformers designed decades ago were suddenly being asked to operate under extreme conditions. Temperatures above 40 degrees became normal. Electrical loads kept increasing. Many transformers became overloaded. Some failed completely. Reports from northern India describe transformers literally burning out under the pressure. In some districts, utility workers were ordered to spray water on transformers every 30 minutes just to keep them cool enough to function. Think about that for a moment. One of the world's largest countries is cooling electrical equipment with water because the weather is too hot. That's not exactly a long-term solution. The result has been widespread power outages. Many rural communities have experienced blackouts lasting several hours. Some areas reported outages lasting up to 10 hours. Even major cities, including New Delhi, have faced rolling blackouts and maintenance shutdowns. And here's the ironic part. The bad news is that extreme heat can quickly become dangerous without air conditioning. The good news, if you can call it that, is that most Indian households don't own air conditioners anyway. Air conditioner ownership remains surprisingly low. For many families, even a basic unit is considered a luxury item. And when temperatures reach the high 40s, that becomes a serious problem. And unfortunately, the heat doesn't just affect people, it affects the economy too. Factories struggle to operate. Construction projects slow down, roads become damaged. Supply chains become less efficient. Workers become less productive. After all, it's hard to focus on work when the temperature outside feels like the inside of an oven. Imagine trying to carry bricks in 45-degree heat. At that point, even the bricks feel like they're trying to cook you. Transportation suffers as well. Extreme temperatures can damage road surfaces, slow deliveries, and create delays across entire logistics networks. But perhaps the biggest problem isn't the heat itself, it's electricity. When the power goes out, factories stop, machines stop, production stops. And that's a serious issue for a country trying to expand its manufacturing sector. Now some people might ask, don't companies have backup generators? The answer is yes and no. Many companies do have generators. The problem is fuel. India imports a huge portion of its energy needs. A large percentage of its oil and natural gas comes from overseas. When global energy markets become unstable, fuel prices rise. Sometimes fuel becomes difficult to obtain altogether. That means businesses face a difficult choice. Pay much higher operating costs or stop production. Neither option is attractive. As a result, the heat wave has created yet another challenge for India's industrial ambitions. Of course, if you want to look at the situation optimistically, You could say this isn't industrialization slowing down. It's simply deindustrialization, arriving ahead of schedule. But people aren't the only ones struggling. Animals are having a rough time too. Dairy farmers across India have reported lower milk production. Cattle experience heat stress, they eat less, they produce less milk. The same thing is happening in poultry farms. Chickens stop eating normally, egg production falls, egg sizes become smaller. Even livestock are finding it difficult to cope with the temperatures. And if animals are struggling, plants aren't doing much better. Many crops are suffering from extreme heat. Soil moisture evaporates faster, fields dry out, harvests decline. In some areas, farmers have reported severe losses. Wheat production has also been affected. Heat waves arriving at critical stages of crop development can significantly reduce yields. In other words, the heat isn't just making people uncomfortable. It's affecting food production as well. And that's where the economic consequences become much larger. India still has a massive workforce employed in informal jobs. Many people work in agriculture, construction, transportation, street vending, and other outdoor occupations. These workers are directly exposed to extreme temperatures. Unlike office workers, they can't simply stay inside with air conditioning. When temperatures reach dangerous levels, productivity falls dramatically. Some workers simply stop working during the hottest parts of the day. Others continue working and risk heat-related illness. Neither outcome is good for the economy. Studies have estimated that heat-related productivity losses could cost India hundreds of billions of dollars over the coming years. That's a significant amount of money. So while millions of ordinary Indians were trying to survive one of the hottest periods in recent memory, what was Prime Minister Modi doing? Well, from the government's perspective, May wasn't just the hottest month. It was also one of the proudest. This year marked the first anniversary of Operation Sindoor. On May 7th, the Indian Air Force released a special video celebrating the operation. The video lasted 88 seconds. According to Indian officials, that number wasn't chosen randomly. The government has repeatedly claimed that its military response was completed within 88 hours and resulted in severe damage to multiple Pakistani air bases. For India, Operation Sindoor has become a symbol of national pride. Prime Minister Modi described it as proof of India's determination, military readiness, professionalism, and commitment to national security. Government officials updated their social media profiles with commemorative images. Supporters celebrated the anniversary across the country. But here's where things get interesting. Pakistan was also celebrating. Pakistan was celebrating what it called its own victory. According to Pakistan's version of events, its air force successfully defeated India in aerial combat. So somehow both sides claimed victory in the same conflict. India celebrated, Pakistan celebrated, everyone won. At least according to their own governments. Pakistan later announced plans to purchase additional fighter aircraft. Supporters argued that battlefield performance justified the decision. Not long afterward, India announced plans to acquire additional Rafale fighters. Some observers found that amusing. After all, critics had spent months arguing over which aircraft performed better. Yet both sides responded by buying more planes. From their perspectives, the logic was simple. Pakistan said its aircraft proved themselves in combat. India said its aircraft proved themselves in combat. Therefore both countries should buy more. Problem solved. Meanwhile, India faced another challenge: energy. On May 10th, Modi encouraged citizens to reduce their consumption of fuel. He argued that every drop saved would help the nation. People were encouraged to drive less, use public transportation more often, share rides whenever possible, travel less if possible, and generally reduce energy consumption. The message was simple. The country needed to conserve resources. But this created an awkward contradiction. Factories needed fuel for backup generators. Backup generators were becoming more important because of power shortages. Yet citizens were simultaneously being encouraged to use less fuel. The situation created a difficult balancing act. The government wanted economic growth. The government wanted industrial development. The government wanted energy conservation. Achieving all three at the same time was becoming increasingly difficult. And as if heat, power shortages, and rising energy costs weren't enough, India has another major problem: water. Or more accurately, the lack of it. Large parts of the country are experiencing severe water stress. In some regions, reservoirs have fallen to critically low levels. Rivers have shrunk. Groundwater levels continue to decline. And millions of people face increasing difficulty accessing clean drinking water. In parts of Rajasthan, entire communities have reportedly relied on a handful of pumps to meet their daily needs. Villagers sometimes travel long distances just to collect water. And even then, there's no guarantee they'll get enough. According to various estimates, hundreds of millions of Indians live in areas facing significant water shortages. The problem is made worse by pollution. Many groundwater sources have been contaminated by industrial waste, agricultural runoff, or naturally occurring chemicals. As a result, clean water becomes even harder to find. For many families, the choice isn't between clean water and dirty water. It's between dirty water and no water at all. And that's a difficult choice. The timing couldn't be worse. Because when temperatures climb above 40 degrees Celsius, people need more water, not less. The government encourages citizens to stay hydrated. Doctors tell people to drink more water. Health officials warn about dehydration. But all of that advice becomes much harder to follow when water itself is becoming scarce. So while ordinary Indians struggle with heat, power shortages, and water concerns, Prime Minister Modi has been spending considerable time abroad. Some critics ask why. Supporters have a simple answer: because India needs partners. Modi has visited multiple countries across Europe and the Middle East in recent months. Officially, the purpose was to strengthen economic cooperation, trade relationships, technology partnerships, and energy security. For example, countries in the Middle East remain important energy suppliers. That's particularly important when global energy markets are unstable. The Netherlands offers expertise in water management, logistics, and agriculture. Given India's water challenges, that's an obvious area for cooperation. Sweden has developed significant expertise in renewable energy, green technology, and sustainable industrial practices. As India searches for ways to modernize its energy system, those technologies become increasingly attractive. So despite all the political speculation, many of these visits were driven by practical concerns: energy, technology, water, infrastructure. The kinds of problems that can't be solved with speeches alone. Meanwhile, another important visitor arrived in India, US. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. His visit attracted significant attention. Indian officials rolled out an elaborate welcome. Meetings were held, statements were made, photos were taken. The usual diplomatic rituals unfolded. But behind the smiles, there were still unresolved issues: trade disagreements, immigration concerns, energy policy, relations with Iran, and perhaps most importantly, Pakistan. The relationship between India and the United States remains important, but it has become more complicated in recent years. Washington and New Delhi cooperate on many issues. At the same time, disagreements continue to emerge. One source of frustration involves the conflict between India and Pakistan. Following recent tensions, President Trump publicly suggested that American diplomacy had helped reduce hostilities. India didn't appreciate that. Indian officials argued that any success belonged primarily to India's military and political leadership. From New Delhi's perspective, India achieved its objectives through its own actions. American involvement was not the deciding factor. That response reportedly irritated some people in Washington. After all, American officials believed they had invested considerable diplomatic effort into reducing tensions. Pakistan, meanwhile, took a different approach. Pakistani leaders publicly praised Trump's role. They thanked him, they credited him. Some even suggested that his efforts deserved international recognition. Whether those claims were accurate wasn't really the point. The point was simple. Pakistan understood something about Trump. Trump enjoys recognition. He likes being praised. And Pakistan was willing to provide plenty of it. That difference in approach did not go unnoticed. Pakistan also strengthened relations with several countries in the Middle East. Security cooperation increased, diplomatic ties expanded, and Pakistan's international profile received a boost. Meanwhile, India watched these developments with growing concern. From New Delhi's perspective, Pakistan seemed to be gaining influence in places where India wanted stronger relationships. As a result, India has worked harder to strengthen its own partnerships, including its relationship with Israel. Modi has repeatedly described Israel as an important partner, and he has maintained a close relationship with Israeli leaders. However, that position isn't always popular in every part of the Middle East, which creates yet another diplomatic balancing act. In many ways, that's the story of modern India. The country wants economic growth. It wants industrial expansion. It wants stronger international influence. It wants energy security. It wants strategic partnerships. It wants technological advancement. But at the same time, it must manage enormous domestic challenges: heat waves, water shortages, energy concerns, infrastructure pressures, environmental issues, and a population of more than 1 billion people. None of those problems are easy, and none of them will disappear overnight. For now, India continues moving forward, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, but always under enormous pressure. Whether the country can overcome these challenges remains one of the most important questions in global politics and economics today. And that's where we'll leave it for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the channel for more discussions like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Who knows? Maybe next time we'll be talking about something even crazier.